Welcome to Thinking Deeply about Mathematics Education. A really nice way, I think, to round off the day. Joining me on the panel will be Dina Khader from the International School of Creative Science, Kerry Conlon from Kent College, and Richard Brashier from Brighton College, Allen. We'll give them a big round of applause. It's not easy. Excellent. So we've got 3 questions. The first one, possibly the most difficult. Can all pupils attain well in mathematics? I don't know if we want to start with you, Richard, you got the mic.
Yes. That's it. It's simple. It really is. For me, it's absolutely simple. 100% yes. Every single child can and will achieve, given the right environments, given the right encouragement, and ensuring that they are provided with the tools with which to succeed. Anyone who comes in, and we've all had them. I was talking earlier about Moza in my class, who's still coming up, Mister, I cannot do this, Mister, I cannot do this. And it's all about how we embrace that. Do we allow that child to walk away from that class not knowing? As far as I'm concerned, if a child walks out of my class and they don't know, then I have failed as a teacher. I have failed them. So it's up to me to go back and reflect upon that and come back the next day and find solutions for that child. And I believe that every single child is able to achieve as a result.
For me, I think it depends what you mean by well. There's some students where well is a 9 at GCSE, and there's some students, like we've had success at Kent College, of students achieving well and getting a 1 at GCSE. All of those results are really important. I think it's about knowing your students, knowing what attaining well means for them, and then making sure that they get to where we think that they should be, and pushing even further if we can.
I believe that all students have the potential to excel in mathematics, especially if we foster this environment of clear expectations from the teacher, from the educators themselves, and also when the students know that the teachers are aiming high from them, you will be amazed of how your students will perform. It's very important to aim high from your students. Sometimes we know that when I enter, for example, the math classroom, what's my role as a teacher? What's my role as an educator? It's to foster this environment. So this classroom will be a safe environment, and we will foster, like saying, mistakes are okay. They will feel okay if they did any mistake or if there is any misconception. Some teachers, maybe they will rely that this student, he will be low able all the time. No, this is not right, because each child has a potential in different areas. This student, he's good today in geometry, not necessarily that he's good in numbers, or not necessarily he's good in multiplication and division. So we need to foster this environment of creating a safe environment. All students are welcome to discuss. And recently, the scenario-based learning is very important approach that we are following now in our school, because it's making all the children able to talk, able to discuss, and to reflect on their learning. So yes, all the students are able to excel, and this is our role as educator.
I think that's really important. And what are we in this business for? And it's to make sure every child gets the highest quality education. I mean, curveball, Kerry. If a member of staff isn't necessarily that mindset, how would you approach it? How would you support them in realising that all children can attain well?
What would I do if I had a member of staff who didn't believe that? I love my school very much, and the students we have here are phenomenal. And as in the position I'm in, I wouldn't be particularly happy about it. I'm also a mum as well, so I'd like to think that my children were being pushed. I think it would then come down to, is it a lack of skill or is it a lack of will? And then those conversations would obviously then happen. If it's a lack of skill, well then that's a CPD issue. Go and observe some teachers that are doing it well and put in support. If it's a lack of will, obviously then it gets a bit more difficult. But it's really important for every child that they're getting the best education possible. And I always think, when I'm a teacher, what would I want for my own children? And I make sure that the way that I am in the classroom would be the same that I would expect for my children's teachers.
All Our next question almost goes in a slightly different direction. Does greater depth exist? And if so, what does it mean?
For sure, greater depth is there. As I mentioned at the beginning, that we aim high from our students. So each student in each class, they need to have this opportunity to be challenged and to be stretched with their knowledge. Because we said we aim high, it means offering this challenge for every student in the class. And we will measure each student to where we can challenge them or to where we can extend them. Because sometimes teachers will understand that differentiation is different abilities worksheets, and the low ability will have this worksheet, the middle ability will have that one, and the high ability for sure he will have another and a difficult one. Our approach is different. We are trying to encourage everyone. If I have, for example, let's say 29 students will be challenged, and we are creating this environment to foster critical thinking. And as I said, the scenario-based approach, and as well the inquiry-based one, and the project-based scenarios is very important, because you will be amazed how your students are encouraged because you trust them. You will not say, for example, that this student, okay, he's low ability, as I'm saying, and he will keep low ability. It's hard. It will be a demotivating environment. So the greater depth is always there, and I believe it's not only in maths. It should be in every lesson, every subject, every day as a daily basis teaching.
Did I watch one of your podcasts where you were saying that students can work with numbers 1 to 10? Greater depth doesn't then mean you teach them to go from 1 to 20 and use those numbers. I think it's important that greater depth doesn't mean we just go that way, that you're kind of changing up the types of problems that you're giving. So in the maths department, we've worked a lot on inquiry maths and kind of looking at that kind of philosophy in terms of greater depth, easy differentiation. Students go off on their different pathways and look at different things. In terms of, can every student reach greater depth? In a perfect world, I'd like to think that they all could, but sometimes I think we've all been guilty of getting that student in year 11 that you just need to get to pass the GCSE and get their 5. And it's a horrible way to teach, but sometimes that surface learning, that student's not going to do much maths again. And I could be being quite controversial here, but we've taught students where getting a 5 is a massive success, and you kind of go as best way you can to make sure they get that. So in a perfect world, I'd like to think all students can get to this greater depth, but there will always be a few maybe, but that's going to be really, really tricky.
Bonus points for listening to the podcast in your preparation.
Also, I don't have to get out to the third question.
I think perhaps it depends on your definition of greater depth. Are we talking about a mathematical term, or are we talking about actually through challenge? Because maybe I actually don't think what you said was controversial, perhaps controversially, because I think that for those children who maybe they are on a 4 and you're just trying to get them to a 5, that perhaps for them what you are giving to them is their version of greater depth. It doesn't fit in the linguistic description of greater depth, because we have it fed to us by White Rose and Classroom Secrets, and they have a greater depth slide that tells us what it is. But actually it's the same sense as challenge. Challenge exists for all. Greater depth exists for all. It's just applying that matter a different way. So if they achieve something, then you apply it in a more complex or slightly different scenario and apply it to real-life problems that will enable them to synthesize their thought process and bring together all that information so that they can apply it in a more complex nature.
And the most important thing, why we need to challenge everyone and why the greater depth is as a daily basis is there. At the end of the year, we have our benchmark assessments, which is the GL, which is STEMS, For example, we have also, mainly now in my mind, is the GL assessment. The GL assessment, it's I don't want to say it's hard, and I will not say it's easy, but we are going to find a lot of problem solving, a lot of critical thinking. So we instill these skills from the beginning of the year at the earliest with everyone in our classrooms, so they will all be able and successful to have a good results in our GL and TIMS assessment. So it's very important to consider it as a normal expectation. It's not something we are going to do, something we need to say, oh, it's something is not there. No, it's there, and it should be something expected in our plans as a daily basis, as I said.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I mean, I ask this question to a lot of people because in England it's slightly misused and it becomes a label. And really, the way you guys are talking about challenge and how it's relative, but it's still meaningful for the pupils, that's what we're aiming for as maths teachers. That's where subject expertise, really drives the pupils forward in whatever direction they need to go. So, I think it's a bit of a loaded question because I've got my own opinions on the labels that we assign in the education system, but I think you guys have done a wonderful job of showing, in fact, across both questions, about how we should be thinking and the mindset we should have in our classrooms, both from the very earliest to the very oldest pupils. The last question is, I find it's a nice one to end on. I think if we start, Dina and Richard and Kerry, you have the final word. But what gives you hope for the future of mathematics education?
Now the future and the daily basis learning is going very fast with our students. So the technology and there is many practices and many opportunities, let's say, for exploration. So this is giving our pupils and our students really a good chance to learn very well, and let's say it's giving us as educators that hope that students they can achieve more and more, because it's not that traditional way to teach, and the students will be listening to you, and at the end of for example, the unit, they want to do that test or that assessment. It's not that way. Sometimes it's the project-based approach. At the end of the unit, we decide as a team that no, there is no time, for example, to assess the students as an exam. And let's, for example, foster that environment for, let's say, let them do a presentation and let them present and discuss their findings and outcomes. So it's very interesting, and the students, I feel they are lucky because they can explore, they can use the technology. So this is what I feel.
Pupils, the children give me hope. This is why we all became educators at the end of the day, when we're speaking to those children, we have those moments when their eyes light up and they actually understand and they've made that progress. It makes you feel good, and that makes me feel hopeful for the future. I think that, coupled with, as you were saying there as well, the technology, that has enabled us to have sessions like this, to talk to other people, that collective teacher efficacy. Working together, that collaboration. If I wasn't doing this, I probably wouldn't have talked so much to my colleague Lorna over there, and had a really great in-depth conversation with her about goal-free problems. So, these sorts of opportunities that are out there to learn from each other. I attended 2 other fantastic sessions as well today, and in each one you're picking up little bits. Lorna and I had a big conversation today on our drive over here about how we're going to develop coaching more within our school, how we can learn from each other, what the pitfalls that might be, how we might be able to get around it. But I think that makes me feel hopeful, because there's always something that you can learn from other people. It doesn't matter whether you've been teaching for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. There's always something new, interesting, that will just spark you and make you feel alive.
I think you stole my answer, Richard. It's definitely days like this and just working with people who are passionate about their jobs. And if you think when I started teaching nearly 20 years ago, all you got was a manual thrown on your desk and said, there you go, work by those standards and crack on. Whereas now there's so much out there, podcasts and online training and CPD, and days like this where you can chat with other like-minded people. So I think Today, for me, has kind of put fire into my belly, and I'm thinking already, you know, plans for next year and what classrooms would look like and lessons and all of that. So hopefully everyone else feels the same. But thank you.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I mean, talking to every teacher I've spoken to today, every teacher I've spoken to this week, has really appreciated the craft of teaching and the desire to get better, and that gives me hope. No matter what, back home political issues we have, or what sort of policy issues in different ways, it's people at the heart of this, and they're, like you said, Richard, putting our children at the fore of their minds. And all I have to do is say thank you very much to the panelists. If you give them a big round of applause, guys.